Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again I'm coming to you with another range report. And today's range report is on a really interesting gun from CZ. This is the CZ97B. It's a particular pistol that I was unaware of until just recently. And before I get into the things that I like and don't like about this and get to the range footage, I want to thank all of the people that make these range reports possible. First and foremost is the owner of this great pistol, a local subscriber and big fan of the channel named Ken. Thank you so much, Ken. It means a lot to me that you lend me your firearms for review. I also want to thank my Patreons as always, because through their monthly donation and support, they help keep the lights on around here. And most importantly, my primary sponsor who helps provide all of the ammunition for these range reports and thus making them financially possible. That is my good friend Mark from Brownworks. You guys know that I talk about Mark from Brownworks in almost every single video. He is an artist. I'm telling you, he can make some of the finest wood grips out of some of the finest exotic woods and materials that you can imagine. His craftsmanship and customer service is off the charts. I know you're probably watching this video because maybe you're interested in buying, or maybe you own a CZ97B. And I'm telling you, there might not be a lot of companies out there that are making custom grips for guns like this. But guess what? Brownworks does. I know that I'm rolling in a bunch of photos of his fine work, and one of these photos is of a CZ97B. Take a look at those beautiful grips. Not only can he construct great grips, he can also custom engrave them with logos and different etchings. Anything that you can imagine, he can do. Mark is a true artist, as I mentioned before here in this little promo spot for him. He provides all the ammunition to this channel, and he supports me here at the Texas Gun Vault, helping Second Amendment content grow in a very anti-Second Amendment place. So if you like the Texas Gun Vault, you like these range reports, and you're looking for a wonderful set of high-quality wood grips, please go out and check out Brownworks. I will put a link to his website in the description and as a pinned comment, as well as a discount code for 10% off your first order. And if you don't see something there that you're interested in, please give Mark a call. Give Mark an email. I guarantee you he'll hook you up with what you need. And when you do, please tell him the Texas Gun Vault sent you. All right, so let's talk about this pistol, the CZ97B. What exactly is it? I mean, we're all familiar, of course, with the workhorse of the CZ pistol line, and that is the CZ75. Well, this essentially is a CZ75, but chambered in 45. There's only a couple of differences that I've really noticed about this gun as compared to its older brethren. It does have a barrel bushing and it has a loaded chamber indicator. That's mainly the bigger differences. And the frame is a little bit bigger to accommodate the 10-round magazines for the 45 ACP. So let's talk about the things that I like and don't like about this particular gun. First and foremost, it's a CZ. Now, CZ is a company that I did not appreciate when I first got into firearms. I was like, it's made in the Czech Republic. I really hadn't heard of them. I don't know if they're really quality. And as I learned about the company, I grew in appreciation of what they do and what they make. They make some of the finest pistols in the world. And not just pistols, but also rifles. I've heard some people say, you come for the pistols and you stay for the rifles. I've never shot a CZ rifle, maybe one day I will, but I have seen many other reviewers shoot them and they seem to be absolutely outstanding. So I know that pretty much anything comes out of the CZ factory is going to be something that is quality. I also really appreciate the fact that this is an all-metal frame. I know that we currently live in a striker-fired polymer handgun world, and this gun is not that. I am maybe a little bit old school in my thinking. I like all metal guns. They just recoil better. They feel more substantial in my hand. And I really like that about this CZ. It's not polymer. Now, maybe they offer something very similar in a polymer frame, but I love the fact that this one is metal. It just feels well built. I also really like how this grip feels in my hand. Now, I'm not a big fan of these rubberized grips, but I'll talk about that in a second. But the dimensions of the grip seem to be really nice. The gun is not too thick for a double stack 45 firearm. Now, these magazines are pretty substantial. They're not super thick, and normally that kind of translates into a gun that has just a very large grip. And I think often sometimes that kind of takes the gun out of the market for a lot of shooters that have smaller hands or maybe are female shooters, because if the grip is simply too large and you can't get a comfortable kind of wrap around with either hand on it, you don't want to shoot it. But this gun seems to have a nice balance. It's 45 ACP, but it's not too large. Now let's talk about a couple of things about this gun that I don't like. And I know some people are saying, how in the world can you dislike a CZ? Well, there's always something about a gun that maybe just handling it here on the workbench, I'm just not a big fan of. And sometimes these things are qualitative. They're opinions. And one of those things is this full-length dust cover. Now, I really like the CZ75, and I like the old school design. In fact, I brought one of my personal CZ75s out here. Here is the CZ75B Retro. And if you notice here, on the front, the slide extends further than the dust cover. I've always felt that just from an aesthetic standpoint, that looks a lot better. It looks like a traditional 1911 or maybe a Browning high power. Now, CZ now makes a lot of these guns with these extended dust covers that go all the way out to the end of the slide. I personally think that it makes the guns look a little bit blocky. But if you are going to have that extended dust cover, I definitely think you need to have a rail. This thing doesn't have any places to put a light or a laser. Now, maybe some of the later models do. I should say that I think this is an older example. I know that Ken got this used, so I'm not sure of what the round count is. Now, I'll go ahead and spoil a couple things. I'm going to have a couple of shooting issues with it, but that just could be because the gun is a little bit older. Now, I do have some people in the comments say you shouldn't review older guns. You should only review new guns. Well, I think it's important sometimes that we review older guns because maybe you're buying a CZ97B and you want to see how does it hold up over time. I think that's a really important data set to consider. But if you want me to only shoot and review new guns, well, beggars can't be choosers. I am very fortunate and blessed that people send me guns for review or lend me guns for review. It is really awesome. So I have to take what I can get. If you want me to shoot a brand new CZ97B, well, I have a Patreon account. I'll be more than happy to go out and purchase the gun for the channel and review it. All you gotta do is support the channel. But if you don't want to do that, you gotta deal with the guns that I have into the channel for review. And this seems to be, as I said, a great gun. It's just an older model. So there might be some things that have changed since this one was made. Another thing that I'm not really a big fan of compared to more of its modern competitors is the fact that this magazine only holds 10 rounds. Now, there are other 45 caliber handguns on the market that hold 13. For example, the Glock 21. And then you have the FNX 45 that holds 15. They're able to stuff more rounds into these magazines. Only having 10, while it's nothing to laugh at, well, I think compared to some of its competitors, they might be able to redesign that and get a few more rounds in there. So only having 10 rounds in such a big gun, well, it is 45. They are bigger. I just kind of wish that there was something that could be done without having to have an extended base plate to give us a few extra rounds. The last concern that I really have is just the controls. These guns in all of the CZ lines, you can either have a safety or a decocker. You can't have both. This one is set up as a safety. So when the hammer is back, you can put that safety on. Now, miniguns like the HK USP series, I think does it right. You can have the safety on when the hammer is down, and when the hammer is up, you can turn that either way, and you can decock the gun by pushing that lever down. Unfortunately, CZs don't work that way. Just the way that those triggers are designed, you can't have the safety on when the hammer is down, only when the hammer is back like it is here, and there is no decocker. Some of the current production ones have the Omega trigger where you can change things out. If you want the decocker, you can have that or have the safety, but you can't have both. I just wish that they would redesign that in some way, that if you want a double action, single action firearm that is hammer fired, you want a decocker and you want a safety, I just kind of feel like that is something that they need to work on for future models. All right, so I have talked enough. I want to get this thing to the range. I want to see how it shoots. So we're going to load up one magazine with 10 rounds. We're going to see how I do. I'm going to shoot at a target at 7 yards. Just see how this thing shoots. Is it accurate? What's the recoil like? I'm really interested. It's a 45 caliber handgun with an all metal frame. So let's see what happens. So this gun for me is shooting pretty darn accurate, and I have to say the recoil is pretty soft, but I was expecting that from an all-metal framed 45. It's very comfortable in my hand. The only thing that I'm not a fan of, and I told you I would get to this, are these grips. These are these rubberized grips. I always say that they kind of feel like an old 1980s car steering wheel. It's that material. It's kind of squishy a little bit. I really don't like that feel. If I own this pistol, I would definitely want to upgrade to some Brown Works grips. And I'm not just saying that because he's a sponsor, it's just I don't like this material. My friend Matt Moore bought one of these and he sent me a picture, and I think they have different grips on them now. They might be those metal grips, I'm not 100% sure, or maybe they're hard plastic. Either of those I think would be better than these softer rubber ones. I just don't like the way that those feel. Now, there was one thing in the shooting portion that I noticed. As soon as I brought the target in, it looked like I was kind of keyholing. I'm going to show you a close-up here of that target once more, and I want you to notice that these holes in the paper are not necessarily circular. As you can see, it looks like they're being kind of stripped, or in a way they're kind of tearing the paper. That's indicative of the rounds tumbling a little bit. So I'm not really sure how that's going to play into the accuracy, and I'm not really sure if the rounds are tumbling, but I mainly see that in rifle rounds when the rounds are tumbling. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on that, but I am a little bit concerned. Maybe the gun is just a little bit older or doesn't like this ammo. I know you guys are going to ask, what type of ammo am I shooting in this? Well, I'm shooting Winchester White Box 230 grain and PMC ball ammunition, both 230 grain as well. So that's just the data points for that, because I know some people will think, well, there's definitely an ammo problem. But we're going to try out some hollow points later, and we'll see if that changes anything. So I want to go to the next portion of this video. I call this the accuracy portion. And essentially what this is, I set the target out at about twice the distance. No, I'm not going to bench rest it. I'm just going to see how I shoot this pistol at a further range. Does the grouping open up for me? I'm going to try for the head on this IDPA target and just see how I do. All right, so the gun is still pretty accurate. I did have one flyer there, and I knew it when I pulled the trigger. I was like, nope, I pulled it at the wrong time. I just wasn't ready, and I knew it was gonna miss. But all the other ones were right on target. I'm actually pretty happy with this trigger. I know a lot of people upgrade CZ triggers to the Cajun Gunworks ones. This one seems to be pretty darn good for me. I've always kind of liked the CZ triggers because they're combat triggers. They're not marksman triggers, but they're not junk either. They're kind of in that middle ground. They're like standard Glock triggers. They're not bad, but they're not the worst. And I like to keep my guns all stock, to be very honest with you. Now, after shooting it, I'm starting to notice another problem. It seems like this slide is moving a little bit slow and kind of slow going back into battery. It's kind of a qualitative thing that you just kind of have to feel. I'm starting to think that this thing might need a new recoil spring. And that's one of the things that I was alluding at, saying this is an older gun. I don't think this is necessarily causing that keyholing or the tumbling of the rounds, which, by the way, it looks like these rounds are still tumbling according to this target. But I told Ken, who owns this pistol, you might want to buy a new spring set for it. All right, well, I'm going to give my son Carter a chance to shoot this. You guys have seen him in some of the latest range reports. I am really trying to get him to the range more and more. Out of all my sons, he's the one that seems to take the most interests in shooting. And I'm a big Second Amendment advocate, and I think you need to take your friends and your families shooting as well. After all, they're the next generation of the supporters of the Second Amendment. Now, he's kind of a novice shooter, and I started him off on 22s and moved him up to 9. This might be one of the first 45s he's ever shot. Now, his technique isn't perfect yet, but we're working on it. But it's nice to see what a novice and a younger shooter thinks of these guns. He was familiar with the CZ75 from his video games, but never heard of the 97. So I'm anxious to see what he thinks. So let's see what happens. So I felt he shot it pretty well and he handled the recoil pretty well. I warned him about the 45. It's going to kick more than the 9. And I think this is just a soft shooting 45. He shot it pretty well. Now, standing behind the gun, I started to be aware of how slow that slide is moving. In fact, I'm going to show you him shooting the gun one more time and kind of cut away the target and things, simply because I want you to watch how the slide is moving. It's moving so slow that you can actually catch it on film. A lot of times, that snap of the recoil is so fast you don't even see the slide move. I know if I go frame by frame, I can see it, but this is really slow. So I'm curious what some of you guys think. Should the slide be moving this slow? Take another look. So I hope you all saw that, and some of you might have even heard it go back into battery after the shot. It's just moving and reciprocating so slow. My gut says it needs a new recoil spring, but I don't know. I've never shot a 97B before, so maybe they're supposed to be undersprung like that. Hopefully we can tell me in the comment section below, but I'm just recording my observations. All right, the next thing I want to do is give my wife Becky a shot at shooting this. You guys know I like her to shoot everything that comes through the Texas Gun Vault because she gives me a completely different perspective, not only from a female shooter, but also from somebody that has a different body than I do. I got these big old meat hands. She's very small and daintily, and sometimes the larger guns she likes, sometimes she doesn't. I always like to get her input. So let's see what she thinks of this fine pistol. So she shot it a little bit high, and it's kind of funny that we're bringing this up today because actually my friend Matt, who already mentioned purchased one of these, went to the range and I believe it was shooting low for him. I took a look at these sights and I noticed something that I've never seen on any other pistol. Look at the height of that rear sight, and now look at the height of the front sight. It almost looks like the rear sight is suppressor height and the front sight is kind of a standard height. I don't know if these are the originals. They sure look like the originals. I went and looked at my other CZs as well. This 75B Retro does have higher sights in the back as compared to the front. So maybe that's on every single model, and I don't know if that plays into this elevation issue that my wife had or my friend Matt had. That's just something I'm going to have to investigate. I thought my wife's grouping was okay. She just shot it high, as I said. She also said that she could feel like the gun was recoiling weird. She said it felt like the slide was going to come off because it's just reciprocating that slow. Another issue that she had, which I should have mentioned earlier in the range report, is that when these mags are topped off to 10 rounds, often the first round nosedives into the feed ramp. So if you load the gun and release the slide, it doesn't go home. The round gets caught. So it's with all three of the magazines that were provided for this range report, and I don't think it's the feed ramp. I actually think it's the magazine design. So that's something to take note of as well. One other thing, which I will bring up in the next portion as well, is the slide seems to go home on reinsertion. I'm not always a big fan of that. I think you saw that in one of the shooting footages I've already shown. It kind of surprised me. I insert that full mag on an open slide and it just went home. I don't like that. And when it comes to quick reloading, I think that can actually cause malfunctions. But we'll talk about that in a moment. So now, speaking of which, let's get to the defensive use of this gun. Well, if you're going to carry this and only have 10 rounds in the magazine, I'm assuming you're going to want to carry extra magazines. You never know, or maybe you're a competition shooter and you're thinking 9.7B might be the way to go. So if an average shooter like myself can do a quick magazine change, well, I know you can, especially if you're well trained. So let's see how I do. So as you saw, I had two issues. The first issue is these mags don't drop out of the gun. Well, it did there, but it's kind of slow. I'm really used to these magazines, or magazines in most pistols, just kind of flying out of there. So it's kind of a slow ejection, and if the gun is turned a little bit to the side, there you go, it doesn't pop out. I like it when those magazines fly out of there, and often, unless you're going to do a specific type of reload, you might have that gun turned a little bit. It's going to add a little friction in there. The magazine doesn't drop free. I was expecting it to drop out. Well, it does there, and reinsert, but I had the gun turned a little bit to the side, so unless it's that perfect angle, you could have problems. And then, once again, on reinsertion, the slide went home, and my left hand was already moving to the slide to rack it. Kind of threw me for a little bit of a loop there. I'm sure it's something that you can train for, and maybe it is part of the design, but I don't like that. I want that slide to stay open. Just a personal preference of mine. All right, we're going to do one more test because you might buy this for defensive use, as I said, and you're going to want to run hollow points. I'm also curious if this plus P ammo is going to perform a little bit better on the target and hopefully not have this kind of weird tearing of the target or this keyholing effect. So I'm going to be using Winchester's Supreme Elite 230 grain plus P bonded jacketed hollow point. So let's see how it performs. All right, so as you can see, I'm not having the same issue. Those holes are definitely cylindrical, so the rounds are not tumbling. This gun seems to like that ammo a lot better than the ball ammo. Why the gun is performing this way with the range ammo, I don't know, but that's going to be for someone who might be a better expert when it comes to ballistics. But this gun just might be a little bit fidgety with ammo. Who knows? So what are my final thoughts on the CZ97B? Well, it's definitely a quality firearm. I know that CZ makes high quality firearms. It just might not be the gun for me. The older I've gotten, the more I've really appreciated 9mm more and kind of gotten away from 45. I just feel like the smaller calibers do more when it comes to handguns. You get a lot of good ballistics because of modern technology, and more importantly, you get better capacity. 45 is definitely a great round and has lots of knockdown power, but you just have those trade-offs. You just get fewer rounds, the rounds are going slower, you have to have bigger framed guns. So for me, I don't really care about the caliber. Aesthetically, the gun is, it's not as nice as those other CZs that I've mentioned. The trigger pull on it is really good. I definitely change out those grips, and I'm having problems with the rounds tumbling. Now, as I always say, this is only an example of one. Just because I have issues with this one gun does not mean your gun has the same problem, or the one that is on the store shelves has the same problem. I just document my personal experiences, and I only have a data point and a sample set of one. But I'm 100% sure those rounds are tumbling. Why? I don't know. So I'd be a little bit concerned purchasing one of these personally after shooting this. But I know this is a tried and true design, so if you own one, I'm not saying you made a bad decision. So on my star system, how would I rate the CZ97B? Well, you don't get a safety and a decocker at the same time. The rounds were tumbling for me. I don't like the aesthetics as much as other guns, but it did perform well, and I really had no failures to eject, failures to fire. So overall, I can't give this thing that great of a score. I'm only gonna give it 3 stars out of 5. I know that's going to be a little bit disappointing to some people, and some people are going to say, Jason, you got it completely wrong, and that's okay. You can tell me why in the comment section below. But understand, that's how this gun performed for me. I tried multiple different types of ammunition, had problems with 2. You guys saw everything that went wrong with this range report. But the gun did run. It's definitely well built, and who knows, maybe the newer ones run even better. But for me, it's only a 3 out of 5 star review. I don't really want one. It doesn't really scratch any itch that I have. I just prefer the CZs and 9mm, but that's a personal choice. So what do you guys think? Did I get this wrong? I totally understand why you would think that, but let me know in the comment sections below. So, as always, thanks for watching.